Does anybody know if because it did say that the House Bill 3331 does have some exceptions for children with developmental disabilities. Does anybody know if that can be written into 504s or IEPs? I'm seeing some nodding. Maybe. From Jade, do you know any more about that? I see you nodding, but.
No, I had just wondered. Same.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Erica put in Erica Lobato said, she said, yes, our offices have been adding it into the IEP in 504.
Okay.
So.
Well, that's good to know that it can potentially be added there if need be, for sure. Elma, go ahead.
Oh, muted maybe.
Is your mouthpiece pulled all the way down?
It looks like you're muted, Elma. You'll have to unmute yourself. Well, Carrie, why don't you go in the meantime while she's.
I know that you can add potty training to the IEP because there are children, even before that this House bill was passed, that had concerns with potty training or had developmental delays that prevented the ability to use the bathroom on their own. So IEPs have been potty training goals have been added to IEPs for many, many years.
Great.
So I'm curious if potty training is being put into IEPs and has been for years, how, having this new requirement, I'm just curious why, if there's, already this need has been being identified and putting into these IEPs, why set a requirement that a child needs to be potty trained? I don't know if anyone knows kind of the rationale.
I don't know the rationale for the House bill, but the IEP previously for potty training would have been for those children who were developmentally delayed and maybe even had some like global developmental delays, and could cover a child anywhere from entry until they were 22. So I don't know what the schools are doing. I think in order to add it, you have to have had your IEP evaluation and determined to have an IEP in order for an IEP to be created for and include potty training.
Haley, like I said, or as I mentioned, wasn't able to be on today's call, but she did send me this kind of one pager about the House bill as well, and some resources around it. And I'll make sure and attach this to the notes that go out afterwards as well. And then I wanted you all to be aware too that we've had, I know last month we had a discussion all about the closure of the medical home portal site. We have had some success in archiving some of the pages. They're not up yet on a public website. We're hoping that we can get them up on a public website. But I do have all the pages PDF at the moment. And so you can request PDFs for me as you need them, but I'll send this out with the notes too. This is the oh shoot, I just closed it. Let me try that again. Here we go. I accidentally hit the X instead of the share. But so this is the PDF version of the site or the page that was on the medical home portal about toilet training children with complex medical conditions, and I'll send this out with the notes too, so it kind of goes through some different methods and services and resources as well that might be helpful around this topic. So I'll send that out as well, but I did want you all to be aware that we have been successful, at least in archiving the site into PDF format. Each page individually is a PDF, so if you do have a need for some of those topics, we're happy to share those. Let's see, it looks like one more thing came through the chat. That's so great. Glad the information is not lost. We're glad too. Very glad. And like I said, we are still working on a public online archive, so more information to come about that. Hopefully by our next meeting, so. Does anybody else have any other resources or things they wanted to talk about related to toilet training specifically?
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Oh, good,
Go ahead.
great. So I have a client that I have been working with. The child is not potty trained, but he does have evaluation, and the parent center Utah has been great helping navigate all of that. However, even the principal doesn't know the rules yet. They don't know what can be because it's all brand new, so they don't know. But if the child does not have an IEP, and in the IEP there's no the accommodation of those goals, they cannot attend school if they are not fully potty trained, if they cannot do it themselves, if they cannot pull up their pants or wipe themselves or whatever. That's the issue we've been having with the school districts. So, and school districts are closed during or very limited times during the summer. So that is a whole other issue that we're getting right now. Because I started with this family in June, and just until now they're start answering that is because the child just was barely registered and started attending school, and then they find out, and then with all the new rules there's not much guidance for them either, for the school districts or for the elementaries.
Yes, that sounds very complicated, and like especially like it's hitting the kiddos hard that don't have an evaluation yet or are not on an IEP and a 504.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Does anybody else have anything that they want to add to this conversation? All right, we have a little bit of additional time for brainstorming. If anybody has a case that they want to share today, or talk about any new resources or announcements you want to make. I don't know what the weather's like in Utah today, but oh, go ahead. Sorry. Interrupted somebody.
Oh, this is Dora from Shriners.
Thank you, Dora.
I was just wanting to let everybody know that there is a new physician referral liaison that has joined me. So if you meet someone named Kenton McAllister, he is my new colleague, but he is going to be covering the north part of Utah, starting from the North Salt Lake out to Idaho. But I will send you an email, Athena, and maybe we can add him so he can introduce himself. Or like his last name, it reminds me of Home Alone. That's the last name for the family, I think. Or maybe I just made that up.
Thank you, Dora.
But I'm still, if you have my number, I've been with Shriners for 14 years. So if you still have questions, I'm always there to answer any questions as well.
Great.
Thank you, Athena.
Yeah. Does anybody else have anything you want to share with the group?
This is Eric. I did just want to mention that we are getting ready here in the next little bit, within the next several weeks to the month, to begin doing our.
Eric, we kind of lost you a little bit.
Is this any better? Okay. I guess just a little wiggle on the boom here on the mic makes a difference. So let me know if you can't hear me. We are getting ready to begin our work on the maternal child health block grant needs assessment. And that is happening statewide. I know that at the end of the month, there will be an event in San Juan County down in Blanding. The Utah Parent Center has been contracted to conduct some of these rural site meetings. There's going to be some stakeholder groups and some just kind of meetings with parents to look at what those needs are across the state. And so we would encourage people to participate in that as they hear about it and sign up for those events. That type of information is very important for us as we determine our goals and objectives for the next 5-year block grant cycle. And we consider that input very highly as we write our goals and objectives for 2 of our national performance measures in children with special healthcare needs, which relate to medical home and transition to adult healthcare. But that's not the only area that we're looking at. Statewide, the Maternal Child Health Block Grant needs assessment does help us to assess those needs for moms, children, youth, adolescents, and children with special healthcare needs. So that input across all of those domains is just very important as we prioritize and look at how we will target programming to our populations across the state. So if you hear about it, please encourage families to participate if they have the opportunity to sign up for that. And then Amy's off mute, so I'll let her weigh in on this as well.
No, thank you, Eric, for sharing about the block grant. And I would say we will be sending a link to this group. There are 3 different surveys that are going out across the state. One specific to caregivers of children with special healthcare needs. Then there's just a community survey, which anyone can fill out. And then there's also a provider survey. So getting that perspective from providers, helping in any of those domains that Eric just mentioned, maternal, infant, children, adolescent, and children with special healthcare needs. So those are the 5 population domains. And I will send the information about the San Juan specific event that's happening, but also the Parent Center, like Eric mentioned, is doing those focus groups, and they are looking for families. So I'll send that to Athena that she could include in the minutes for any families that you think might be interested in participating in those focus groups that will be across the state. So.
I just wanted to jump in real quick. So I think the focus group for San Juan is full, but the resource fair and classes are wide open. We've got a full day or 2 days of classes. And so we are trying to get all the word, out to everybody out there. And we are doing a live, I guess, Zoom broadcast for the chapter houses on the reservation for the people who can't come in person.
Thank you all for sharing. That's great. Anyone else have any other announcements or things they want to share during our brainstorming session here? Sorry, my voice is so squeaky. It's disconcerting. Okay, in the chat, Amy Black said she's new to this position. Are there any resources for free preschool besides Title I Head Start? Anyone have any resources for Amy about free preschool options?
One thing I will say about, can you hear me actually?
Mhm.
Okay, for free preschool, a lot of the schools offer scholarships if they're still available. So I would just reach out to whatever school district they're in and ask about any kind of scholarship, and you can often fill out an application and either get them in on a scholarship or put them on a waiting list. And we've had success getting a lot of kids into preschool without fees doing that.
There are also often grants that people can apply um, for different schooling. Depends on the population you're looking at, but there's a lot of like disability specific grants that they could look into.
Athena, you're on mute.
Thank you, Bree.
No problem.
Thank you everyone for sharing. This has been a really great discussion around a lot of different topics today and really good resource sharing, which is like one of the main things we love to see about this group is that, everybody has a different set of knowledge and we can share that knowledge to all be better care coordinators and better serve the families that we work with. So we really appreciate everybody jumping in with their questions and announcements and sharing. That's what makes this meeting special in my mind. So we'll move on to our learning session, or the first one of our learning sessions today, which is around qualifying for private duty nursing. And today, for that presentation, we have Christie Smith, who's the Director of Nursing for Amazing Care with us today. I'm going to go ahead and turn the time over to her.
Perfect. And I do have a slideshow that I created just to go along with it. I am not as familiar using the Zoom platform for this, so I'm going to do my best and see if I can get it to pull up here. Oh,
Great.
it's actually pretty easy. Love that. Okay, let me. Okay, can you guys see that okay?
Yep, we're seeing it. Great.
Oh, okay. Let me go back. I'm going to pull this onto my other screen so I can see your faces while I am doing this. Okay. Okay, so like Athena said, my name is Christie. I work with Amazing Care Home Health Services. Before I stepped into the office position, I worked as a field nurse with children with complex medical needs and have just really loved this job in nursing. I'm really passionate about the programs that that we have available or that we're able to help families with. There are, as you guys know, lots of great programs available in Utah. We help with a couple of those through our services. So lots of different waiver programs that are in Utah. The two that we really deal directly with are those that qualify for the medically complex children's waiver and also the technology dependent waiver.
Christy, we can't see your slides.
Oh, you can't?
Well,
Oh,
we're
did I
seeing,
move it? That's why,
yes,
because
as
I
you moved
moved
your
it to the
screen,
other
I
screen.
think, yeah.
Hold up, let me change my what screen I'm sharing. Thank you, I appreciate that. Didn't even think that through. I didn't realize my pictures were gonna do something else on my Zoom. So, okay, here we go. You guys can see it now.
We're great. Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. So a lot of different programs available in Utah, and most of them I don't have that much knowledge about, but we do work closely with the medically complex children's waiver and the technology dependent waiver, and looking at people's credentials next to their names. I think we have probably quite a few people here that are very familiar with all of these different waiver programs. For the medically complex children's waiver, this one is the easiest for families to get set up with. There is an application process for it. It does have provide 13 hours a month of skilled respite care. So that would be a nurse there in the home for up to 13 hours a month. That kind of provides for parents to, go out, go on a shopping trip. The nurse can go along and help during family outings, going to Lagoon, whatever they want to do, that those hours can be used to help support the family. There's a max of 6 hours per day, and the hours can't be used overnight. A lot of our families do pretty much spread it out across the month, and we'll use 3 hours a week for the month. And a lot of times they'll get their nurse that they connect well with, and that nurse will schedule and arrange with the family to help them provide those services. So there is an application process on the Medicaid website. The qualifications for that program are 0 to 18 years old, besides their primary care physician, that they see 3 or more other specialists. They have medical complexity that involves 3 or more organ systems. And then, some of the indicators, they're not meeting age appropriate milestones like feeding, dressing, toileting, bathing, etc. There are a few other guidelines or things that can qualify children that are listed on that Medicaid webpage as well. I do see patients getting told about this program when they have a child in the hospital that has some issues. Families also don't know a lot about what other services there are. So we're seeing a lot of families that have qualified for the medically complex children's waiver that are very unfamiliar with the system as a whole. There's also the technology dependent waiver. That one, families are solidly in the system typically, unless they come to us under the medically complex children's waiver. We have had, families that their child had some significant medical needs. They were on the medically complex children's waiver, which only gives 13 hours per month. But they did have, some of these other qualifications that would provide them with a lot more skilled respite. So, 480 hours within a 6-month block, and they can use those hours how they choose. So we have some families that kind of store up their hours and will go out of town, take a trip, and we're able to provide 24-hour coverage for them while they're gone. Others kind of use it to help supplement their care throughout, the week, along with their private duty nursing. Qualifications for that one, the biggest is this, dependent on one or more of the following: being a mechanical ventilator, having a tracheostomy with respiratory support, using CPAP or BiPAP, or having a central line that they need IV meds or nutrition. And that the whole purpose of this is to try and help support families with keeping their children in the home instead of in a nursing facility. Because it is, we're seeing an increase of needs, especially in the Salt Lake area. I think with Primary Children's Hospital here, a lot of families from other states are coming into the state because they want to be close to Primary Children's. And so we are seeing a lot of kids that could qualify for this type of program, especially in the Salt Lake Valley and Utah County as well. The biggest thing for me, as I mentioned, families that get onto that medically complex children's waiver, that sometimes they have some significant needs, maybe not as many needs as that would qualify for the tech dependent waiver, but actually would benefit and qualify for more than the 13 hours per month, because when the child qualifies for that waiver program, they are assigned their own Medicaid insurance coverage. So if we go in and look at their medical needs, their care needs on a day-to-day basis, based on the private duty nursing acuity grid that is set up by Medicaid, that's completed every 60 days. And those services, if they qualify for them, those services will continue to follow them forward into adulthood as long as their needs remain, the same or greater than that. So some of just want to talk about some of the things that might qualify a child for additional services. So we are looking at things like, how many full assessments would we be doing on that child during a shift? How often are we taking their vital signs? How many doses of medication are they getting during the time that the nurse would be there? What are their G-tube feeds like? Almost all these kids, if they have a G-tube feed, they are going to be at risk for aspiration. So we're putting aspiration precautions in place. Do they need to be suctioned a lot? Are they having to use oxygen on a regular basis or at least once a week? The BiPAP, CPAP, being on a ventilator, needing to have nebulizer treatments or chest percussion therapy, cough assist. Do they have seizure activity? We have some kids that, they don't have a trach. They're not on a vent, but they do have a lot of seizures. And sometimes that will be enough to get them qualified for private duty nursing. If they have any mobility issues, we are doing passive range of motion, and in conjunction with them, that a lot of times they have orthotics that they need put on and off. And then if they have any sort of wound care that requires daily care. So all of these categories, depending on, what, the answers are to these questions, will give them points. And then if they hit 21 points or more, then they would qualify for that private duty nursing. And it's a huge difference for a family going from having 13 hours a month that they can use to now, if their child actually does have the number of cares that would bring them up to 21 or more points, that they could actually be getting 12 hours a day of private duty nursing. So that's a huge change. I started realizing as I went in to do these admissions for just the skilled respite, I saw these kids and wow, they've got a lot of stuff going on, and, started having those conversations with families about, let's go through this carefully. Let's make sure I know what their care entails, for a 24-hour period, and see if that level of care actually qualifies them for additional services. And in most cases, the child did qualify for the additional services. So going from 13 a month to 12 hours a day, parents rightfully so are crying and so relieved to have 13 hours a month, but 12 hours a day, you can see how that would be just life-changing for a family to be able to support them to to be able to work. We have parents that work from home, to be able to get some rest, do life, because these children do require 24-hour care, and that puts a lot of strain on families trying to do that all on their own. So we do know, however, that there are acuity grid changes that are in process. We have been looking at that acuity grid and have been able to give some recommendations, some feedback on that grid. We don't know yet what the scoring exactly is going to be, or how many points are going to qualify a child for the services. But I do feel like the changes are kind of expanding in a way that may capture some children who are complex, but haven't fit into that neat package that was the, the current acuity grid that we're using. And, we want to make sure that we are helping to provide families with that care that they really need. I know the goal has been that it's not going to disqualify children who are currently on the service, but that does remain to be seen once the grid actually comes out, which should be next month. So with these services, just a couple of our families, some of their comments, a mom that she came to us with the waiver, and her daughter qualified for private duty nursing, just an infant. And she said, today's our first day having nurses. She was just raving about, I could get some food. I was able to go to the bathroom. I could get something to drink, just simple things that we take for granted. They're in their own home, feeling like they couldn't even step away for a minute, to go to the bathroom. And just grateful to see that was super helpful in making a difference. And then another family that's had the same nurse for years now. I think she's been there for 5 years and has been able to help the family create a really good system and for his cares, a schedule for all of his cares, and help train other nurses to be able to help provide that as well. She's a good point of contact between the family and the physicians, and making sure that those important questions are asked, and she's able to oversee what's going on and catch things that might indicate that maybe there's a problem that needs to be addressed, and can be addressed sooner rather than later, and help keep that child out of the hospital. So any questions from anyone about private duty or how that works with the waiver programs?
Christie, we had a question come into the chat that asked if there
Okay.
was a way for medically complex child to qualify for Medicaid independent of their family.
Yes, that's exactly right. So if the family applies for the medically complex children's waiver and they do get on that waiver, that child now is on their own Medicaid plan that is independent from their family's income. It's only based on the child's income, which, in most cases, the children don't have any source of income. So it's a huge benefit, because some families that are, struggling and trying to get that help, they don't qualify for Medicaid as a family. And so they don't recognize that there are ways that their child as an individual can end up getting this coverage that makes such a huge difference. So yeah, that's exactly right.
I have a question about so you talk about the acuity grid scoring. Does that automatically happen, or do parents have to request that? Like, how does that process get initiated?
Right, yes. So it actually has to be performed by a home health agency. So, if a family contacts an agency for the skilled respite services, if that agency, the person that goes out does a full assessment on, well, let's talk about more in depth, because I do know when I first started that it was kind of practice that, oh, if someone called up and they were wanting this skilled respite and they have these 13 hours a month, someone would go out, bring them on service, they're getting that 13 hours a month, but they actually could have had more services, but no one was asking those questions. They just weren't being as thorough at trying to find out, what's the full picture beyond, yeah, we can give you a nurse for 13 hours a month. There's the possibility that maybe there are other services that they could qualify for. The hard thing is, because with the waiver, there are ways that families can do like self-directed, like it's actually the payment goes to the family for, you know, kind of a little bit of a financial support for them providing those cares. And in that case, we have families who maybe they've been doing this self-directed for a few years. And so they don't even know, because they've never interacted with anybody that could tell them that there are other services that they might qualify for. And some of those families, like if they come on and they qualify for private duty, they can still maintain that self-directed part of their waiver hours if they want. And on the tech dependent waiver, the same, they can split up, they can keep part of those hours self-directed and, you know, use that to pay themselves for the times that they're spending on care, and have someone else, you know, those hours assigned to an agency or something for other people coming in. So there is a lot of flexibility there on how families can use it.
Could you explain a little bit how the private duty nursing is different or the same from the MCCW? Thanks.
Yeah. So the MCCW, they it really is just kind of, let's give the family a break, and it's very limited, you know, only limited to that 13 hours a month. The one thing is that it is more flexible what can be done during that time that a nurse is there. So a nurse can leave the home with the family. They can go, you know, do all sorts of things. With private duty nursing, it is cares that are to be provided in the home setting. So they can't, you know, be going places and doing things like that. They are providing the care there in the home, but nurses can, so we have a lot of 12-hour shifts that nurses are doing either all day, or we have nurses that some go and stay the night shift. So if there's a patient on a ventilator or on CPAP, BiPAP, needs suctioning, repositioning during the night, things like that, that a nurse can be there and help so that a family can get sleep. So it really is kind of almost like a mini hospital in your home, where the nurse is there focused on the patient, doing their respiratory treatments, giving their meds, giving their feeds, you know, doing their range of motion, helping, you know, with their therapy programs, whatever needs that they have, the nurse just focuses on that child's care for typically 9 to 12 hours is what most families request and are able to qualify for, as long as they have those, you know, those points. That's what the bottom amount typically is, that 12 hours. But some families don't feel that they'll use as much as that, so they only request 8 or 9. So that's what we do instead.
So how is that funded? Like, is that through DSPD or?
Not through
How do people
DSPD.
qualify for private duty nursing?
So it goes to, because they have the this Medicaid plan, now they're on Utah traditional Medicaid. After we do that evaluation and fill out that acuity grid, if they do meet those points, we submit that to Medicaid, and Medicaid reviews that, and you know, if everything looks good, and then they'll go ahead and approve those hours. So it is funded through Medicaid, and every 60 days a nurse is going in again and saying, okay, what's really being done? So the first one is kind of, when we do the initial assessment, it's kind of, this is our best guess, you know, like based on everything that the parent is telling us, based on the documentation that we have from their PCP, you know, here's their meds, here's kind of their routine. And so we do our best, you know, estimation of what a shift would look like and what cares would need to be provided during that time. But then at that 60-day mark, we're actually looking at all the documentation of what has really been done during a shift. And we send in, 14 days of notes to Medicaid for review that match up with this acuity grid and showing that, yes, this is consistent. What we're marking on the grid is the service that they're needing while we're in the home. And as long as that remains true, then they qualify for another 60 days of that private duty nursing. And most kids will, you know, continue to qualify for, you know, sometimes their entire life that they will, as long as, you know, many of these kids that are chronic and have these complex needs, the majority aren't getting better. You know, we're trying to keep them at least, you know, stable, right? But you know, they may have neurodegenerative conditions or things that aren't really going to get better as they get older. They're going to, you know, continue to have increased needs. And so they'll stay on that program and be able to have access to those nursing hours as long as they have at least that level of need or greater. But we do have some kids that come on as infants, and they are going to improve as they grow. You know, they have like pulmonary hypertension, they're on a trach, they're on a vent. But as they grow, then some of those needs decrease. We have a patient that, you know, mechanical ventilation 24 hours a day, continuous oxygen with a trach, G-tube feeds, all of that. But as she's gotten older, they were able to kind of decrease the amount of oxygen use that she required. They started taking her off of the vent for short periods of time, building up her endurance off of the ventilator. And now she's off of the ventilator altogether, only needs oxygen maybe once a week. She is now up ambulating. So she is improving and, you know, continuing to progress and working with the family saying, okay, at this point, as these things happen, then, you know, she's not going to she won't meet the threshold for receiving private duty nursing anymore, which is exciting. That means that they're improving and getting better. However, she still does have access to those waiver hours that she has, so she can continue to use those, but the private duty nursing would be weaned back as well until, you know, they aren't on that service anymore once their condition improves, if that makes sense.
Sure. So how would a family start? Would they start with the MCCW? Or
I probably
they-
would. It's the easiest program to get started with. So on the Medicaid website, there is a link there.
What
You're
is
breaking
the
up here. Let
beginning
me see.
process?
Hold on. You're breaking up. I didn't quite catch your question. Trying to see if I can get out.
Sorry, I just asked if how people would get started to apply
So
for private duty nursing.
Yep, there is let me see, I'm trying to get out of, who knows how I stop sharing once I'm not used to.
Escape, it usually should allow your presentation to
Escape, okay. Okay. Let's see, share. Get out of stop sharing. I had a slide on here that does have the Medicaid website. I'll just post it in the chat so that those who want to go look at the information, you'll be able to see, and it has all the requirements, and the application form is a digital form that a case manager, you know, provider, anyone can help the family go through that and fill it out and submit it. Let me grab that. The tech dependent waiver, it has a long waiting list, so it can be 1 to 2 years. And a family has to choose between what waiver program, at least between these two, that they're only on one program or the other. So families, if they apply to that, they'll go on a waiting list. And then if they do end up coming up, then they'll switch over. They can switch over to that program. So that is the link to the medically complex children's waiver. It does have general information, and then it has the there's a what's it called? A link there to apply for MCCW. Please click here. So it'll take them right into that form and has good, frequently asked questions and things like that for families.
And Christie, I took control
Oh,
back
thank
over
you.
the sharing and I'm showing that website now for everyone. to see.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
from what I can understand, it sounds like once they qualify for the medically complex children's waiver, they then are on their own Medicaid, which would allow them to have an assessment done by a home health agency that might allow for these additional private duty nursing hours. That's kind of the
Yep.
process.
Yeah, yep, that's exactly right. So I always tell, if, any family, they have the medically complex children's waiver, or they want to get on it, recommend contact an agency, ask them, hey, can you, look and see if I might qualify, if my child might qualify for private duty nursing. And, I have those conversations all of the time with families, just kind of walking through, well, let me ask you some questions. And I basically just kind of go through the categories with them and ask them, does your child need this? How many medications is your child taking? What does that look like? So I'll just kind of talk through what their child's care looks like on a daily basis and get an idea if it sounds like they would qualify based on that acuity grid.
All right, it looks like we have one last question. Eric, we'll have you ask your question and then we need to move on to our next presentation. So.
Okay, and mine's not really a question. I was just going to say that applying for medically complex children's waiver is actually kind of a two-part process. You're applying with Department of Health and Human Services with the Medicaid folks for the medically complex children's waiver, but it also requires an application with Department of Workforce Services for the actual Medicaid side of things to get the Medicaid card. So you get the waiver through DHHS, Department of Health and Human Services, and the card, the Medicaid through Department of Work. So there's a little bit of coordination there to make that happen. And we deal with that a lot through our care coordinators, at the local health departments where we have care coordinators with integrated services, and our in-house team with Walt, Tony, and Heather. So we have been able to help families kind of coordinate that, and they do it all the time at the Utah Parent Center as well. So if you have any families that need help with that, I know that Utah Parent Center, and we're always happy to help with it here at Integrated Services at DHHS as well.
Yes, thank you. I never get involved until this part's already done. So, I mean, I do tell families about it if, or recommend people tell families about it, but I'm never involved until they've completed this process. And I know that they do have case managers that can help. So that's awesome to know there are other people in the community that can help families navigate the application process, because it can be tricky for families to gather the information that they need, and how do I do this and what's next, so it's good to have people out there that can support that.
Well, thank you so much, Christie, for coming today and helping us understand this a little bit better. I think, we're all involved in the work on a pretty regular basis, and still some of this information is new to us. So helping families navigate it is really crucial, and we appreciate what you presented today. If we have any follow-up questions, we'll be sure and send them through email and things like that.
Absolutely.
So we have a second part to our learning session today, which is all about services available through the Carmen Pingree Autism Center for Learning. And for our presenters for that group today are Rafael Ochoa, who's the clinical director, and Savannah Talbot, who's the clinical supervisor at Pingree. So I'll go ahead and turn the time over to them now.
Oh, thanks for having us. It's going to be me and Savannah presenting today. We'll start with some intros and then we have a presentation for you all. So I'm Rafael Ochoa. I'm the clinical director of the Pingree Center. I'm a BCPA. I've been in the field for about 10 years now. I started in a bunch of different spots like group homes, clinics, and schools, currently working in this center, and I'm loving it. I'll hand it over to Savannah so she can introduce herself as well.
Awesome. I'm Savannah. I am our clinical supervisor. I have been at Pingree for about 5 years, and I've been a behavior analyst for just over a year or so. My journey in mental health started with my bachelor's degree I got from the University of Utah to become a recreational therapist, and my background was in mainly adaptive sports, helping with the National Ability Center in Park City. And then I wanted to kind of turn to the clinical side, and I found Pingree and have been here since I graduated and got my master's in 2022.
Thank you, Savannah. We'll go through the presentation. If you have any questions throughout, please let us know. I don't have my chat up, so if you all want to just point out those questions, we can answer them. We'll give you a brief history of the Pingree Center. So the Carmen B. Pingree Center Autism Center of Learning is our official name. We're a specialty service of Valley Behavioral Health. They help with a bunch of mental health aspects all over Utah: homelessness, housing, substance abuse, a couple of other options for intellectual disabilities. But here at this Pingree Center specifically, we're focused on autism and secondary diagnosis like ADHD and anxiety. We're listed as a day treatment program, so we have individuals diagnosed with ASD and those other mental health diagnoses. Our clientele right now are from 2 to 21, so we previously were from 2 to 18, but we've just about 2 months ago started with a couple 18-year-olds that we have in the center to start our transition age program, which will be 18 to 21 and focus on workability, getting those daily living skills in, and just trying to give them those skills so they can move on to that next step of life. Really, the goal for our whole center is transitioning clients into less restrictive settings. That could be a special education program in a public school or a private school. That could be general education classrooms if they get to that level. It really just depends on the clients, and we try to individualize it as much as possible.
Hey, I'm going to talk back and forth with Rafael about our history. So Carmen B. Pingree was started by Carmen Pingree herself. She spearheaded the movement to start our center to fund a preschool specializing in services for individuals with disabilities, because she had noticed that lack of autism services in Utah, and that has been our primary focus throughout our years and as a part of our goals, which we'll kind of talk about at the end as well.
In 1998, David and Susan Spafford created the vision of the Autism Elementary School. That's kind of how we got the idea of what we would do here. The school was envisioned to serve nearly 250 students with autism and really just serve for that specific community. It's changed a little bit over time. We aren't at 250. We can house about 120 clients here, but getting that same idea where this is specialized and getting that option for kids that just don't fit in that box of public school.
And in November of 2002, that was able to happen with the thanks of our community. We were able to start a K-12 program service model, and that's what we look like today with our age group that Rafael mentioned. Our classes are divided by age, and so we have preschoolers, we have early elementary, late elementary, and then our 12 to 18-year-olds actually have their own building here that has setups to work on more independent living skills, and we'll talk more about those services after our history.
In 2014, the center changed its name to Carmen B. Pingree Autism Center of Learning to reflect the center as a place of learning, not only for children, but also their families, staff, university students, and community. We'll go over how we partner with different agencies throughout the process, but we have families come in to volunteer and just observe and see what we're doing. They come in once a month for our care plans, where we're talking about goals that they have and seeing how we align with what they're doing at home. We have other family members come as well. We have carnivals, which are really fun. We just did a fall one where they can come and kind of have fun. We have a bounce house. We bring out popcorn, different snacks for everybody. We partner up with the University of Utah with our interns. We have a couple of them even come to do research at our center and use our clientele to base their knowledge. And then hopefully more opportunities to work with the community, like you all doing trainings. We've had a couple people from different hospital settings come and do training for us as well.
With our center in 2015, we started a campaign called Do Your Blue. We now call it Uniquely You, but this helps to raise funding for student scholarships as well as for other needs throughout our center. So this last year and the year before, we did an art show for clients to show off the unique work that they have put their time and energy into to be able to fundraise, and we'll be doing that again this year.
In 2020, due to a huge lack of quality of autism services in Utah for adults, Valley decided to open up one of the first adult autism centers. We now go by the Adult Ability Center to make sure that we're focused on all disabilities. So they have diversified what they offer there. But the big changes, we're really focused on daily living skills and vocational training. We provide a little bit better ratios than other day treatment centers that are in the area, and have a couple more resources. So they partnered up with a couple of places like Shields to work on workability skills. They have a farm right next to their center. It's in Draper, where they can practice just some of those like inventory, cleaning objects, and they're out in the community every day trying to find ways to build those skills.
Hey, so looking at our center and what we offer and the different services. So to start off with, I'll tell you a little bit about our classes. So we have a maximum of 10 kids in each classroom, and our ratios are about 1 staff to 3 clients. That ensures safety for clients and for our staff, because we are working with kids that have been less successful in those least restrictive environments, meaning they've tried to be in public school settings or private school settings. They may have previously been in special education classes, but just are not able to address the barriers that they are having. So we do work with kids with severe challenging behaviors. They may have been suspended, expelled. Parents might feel that they're just not safe in the setting they're currently at. So that's where a lot of our clientele come from. And so that's why our ratios are lower. We're working through those barriers. And as Rafael mentioned at the beginning, our goal is to transition our kids back to those larger groups in those least restrictive settings. But we work on that within smaller groups here at our center. And so with our staff in the classrooms, we have our autism specialists who oversee our classroom, the classroom management, and they supervise our assistants and our aides. And then every class also has a social service worker who's overseeing the treatment provided and completing documentation for the services we're providing, as well as a resource for parents and meeting with those parents for those monthly meetings Rafael mentioned, and completing those to address what goals we're working on at our center and how that's going at home, as well as within the work we're doing here. Our classes are also supported by registered behavior technicians. So our RBTs are a part of our specific one-to-one team. So they work with kids that have a higher medical necessity for needing one-to-one services. And that's determined by myself and Rafael, and we directly supervise these RBTs and the services they provide. And they're working with kids on those barriers within the group, or they're working outside of the group. We have separate classes that they can work in as well, really depending on what their goals are. And then, as Rafael mentioned, our capacity is about 150 individuals. We currently have 13 classrooms open and working to continually fill it. Since COVID, we did shut down all of our services, pivoted to some in-home service, and then have been bringing clients back and rebuilding our center to reach full capacity again.
Services and funding sources. The Pingree Center can currently provide these 4 options. So we have psychosocial rehabilitative services and therapeutic behavior services. Those are the services that we're providing in the classroom. So they can be done in groups. They're done by either under licensed staff, or the therapeutic behavior services are done by social workers, but that's where most of the services are coming from our center. Like Savannah said, we also have RBTs that can offer that applied behavior analysis therapy. So that's either done by me and Savannah as BCBA BCBAs or the RBTs that we have working. And then individual therapy is done by our licensed clinical social worker and our clinical social worker that we have here. So they're just working independently with our clients. The main funding source for our clients is often Medicaid, but we also accept private insurances and private pay. Our fees are pretty high. So most of the clients that we have are Medicaid. That covers almost all of the fees that we would provide. And then we have a scholarship called Carson Smith. It just changed its name and I'm forgetting the name of it, but that would cover any other fees that we might have, like services for behavior support, things that wouldn't be able to be billed. The private insurance, we can offer services through that. They just don't cover all of those funding sources. So psychosocial rehabilitative services and therapeutic behavior services do not usually get covered with those private insurances. So we'll work with the families, see if they'd like to do maybe like a copay for those services. We could even try to just focus the day on applied behavior analysis therapy that usually is covered. And then we do offer private pay. The average of that yearly pay is about $42,000 a year. So it is pretty high because we have to build those same numbers, but we can always work with the families and see how we can either use scholarships, other funding sources to lower that amount. Now we're going to go over those.
And so our first one are those psychosocial rehabilitative services, or we refer to them as PRS services. They're provided by under-licensed staff that have been trained in applied behavior analysis strategies and classroom management. And that's what our autism specialists, our autism assistants, and our autism aides are, and the services that they are providing. The main focus for these are addressing those skills that are in our care plans. We have goals and objectives detailing what we're working on day to day, and our staff that are PRS and TBS are working towards addressing those and helping our clients develop to try to meet milestones based on neurotypical development for peers their age. And then this is done in a school or a group setting and can be done with a group of up to 20 individuals at a time or individually as well. Like I said, our ratios are up to 10 as a maximum, but with the billing code, it allows for up to 20.
Our therapeutic behavior services are very similar. Really, the big difference would be they're getting provided by a licensed social service worker, so the funding source is a little bit higher. Really, the big difference will be they can focus on more symptomology and diagnosis of that anxiety or ADHD or other mental health diagnosis. We do a lot of training on the autism side. Me and Savannah are very well versed with that being BCBAs and all of the trainings that we already have built into the center. But this is pretty new to really focus on that secondary diagnosis and see how we can lower that symptomology along with that ASD. So they've been really helping out with that. They can also provide some more parent services as well, really focusing on making sure our goals are matching what's happening at home, providing resources if there is anything needed for parents outside of the center that we can't provide here. And really just, they've got some extra knowledge from schooling and from experience that might be able to help with.
Applied behavior analysis therapy or ABA services, those are provided by registered behavior technicians, so they have to have the specific certification that is through the BACB or the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. They're required to do 40 hours of training. They need to have at least a high school diploma, and they take a supervision or a certification exam, and then they are required to have 5% supervision from BCBAs such as Rafael and myself. So we're with them frequently. That's what our day-to-day looks like, is providing them supervision, constant feedback on services provided to clients, and being overseen for all the services they provide. With this, it is that one-to-one that I mentioned, working on barriers relating to the specific assessments we use for ABA therapy, and relating to their diagnosis of autism spectrum disorder. And then we also work with the parents to be able to provide parent training and do group social skills, with clients, and those really do depend per client, but especially with those parent trainings, we're working on barriers that they might be facing at home or goals that they have specifically for their clients, and we're able to meet with them for 3 hours per authorization period, which is 6 months, and do that one-to-one face-to-face training to help them use the strategies we're using in the center and apply those at home.
The last one is that individual therapy. So these must be provided by a clinical social worker or a licensed clinical social worker. So just having that higher licensure allows a little bit more focus on more therapy related things. The service focuses on addressing clients' mental health issues, emotional concerns, behavioral patterns, and overall psychological well-being. Our program director, Kay Harden, is a licensed clinical social worker. So she's done this a couple times with our clients that have that higher need. And for this, really that higher cognitive skill is needed. So most of the clients here are nonverbal, have low vocal skills. So this doesn't happen with most of our clients, but those clients that are ready to transition or have that higher ability are able to do this. We actually just hired a clinical social worker a couple months ago as well. They've been focusing on those higher behavioral clients and really helping them kind of work through problems that they might be seeing in the classroom and using some therapy options for them.
Awesome. So what does a day look like for us? So our classrooms follow a specific structure for their schedule, but then really adjust per the age group. So we do what are called discrete trial training sessions and group sessions that are within the concept of applied behavior analysis, but kind of a general idea of what we do for the mornings. We do try to make it look like a school setting. So we're working on maybe in the mornings, our clients come in, the classroom does like a calendar group, reviewing days of the week. For our preschoolers, maybe singing some songs about the days, things like that. And then we work on sessions where our staff may be working one-to-one with clients, or they're working with 3 clients and working on individualized learning skills. Or different barriers, really depends on the client. So our work is really individualized in what we're doing. And with those sessions, the classroom is providing about 6 of those a day, working on different things. And then the rest of the time is filled with, we do lunch, we do gym, recess outside, depending on the weather. And then those sessions incorporate really the majority of the day. Each kid doing something different. Some examples at the bottom there. One kid might be naming colors, while another kid might be working on some simple math problems, pieces like that. We're working on really those core aspects of the Utah Board of Education standards of being able to sit in their seats, attend to group sessions, attend to individual sessions. So that's what those session times are really focusing on, are those pre-academic skills as well.
We'll go over a little bit more detail with the groups. These can include tasks that you would see in a general education classroom, so arts and crafts, worksheets, group lessons. Really, the classroom has the wherewithal to hopefully fit this into whatever the skills of the classroom are. Our classes can be pretty diverse with skill levels, vocal skills, cognitive skills, things like that. So it might look like arts and crafts where some of the kids are building full models, they're drawing everything on their own independently, and we're just observing to make sure they're following the rules. And then with other kids in the class, it might be one-to-one attention where we're helping them hand on hand, trying to make them draw, helping them just glue things together. So that's really one of the bigger challenges for our staff, is trying to find different levels for each client and making these groups fit. But it does help kind of make sure that we're expanding and finding something for everyone to do. Other groups that we've seen that are pretty successful and that people may choose are sensory groups, where they have maybe like bins of things that help them de-escalate, like rice, beans, different sensory options. And hopefully that builds that skill of, if I'm upset, I have this as an option to calm myself down. With our clients, especially food can be challenging, just trying to build that up and get options for them to try new foods. We'll do really simple things like different fruits and vegetables, even some fun things, letting them really like start with just playing with it, seeing it in front of them, taking little bites, but just building that skill of being able to tolerate it. Turn taking is a big one. Our kids have a really hard time sharing sometimes, so they might just have a favorite toy, maybe a bucket of different things, even sometimes just an iPad where someone's choosing a video to watch and they're taking turns choosing who picks that video. And then especially with our older kid, brain breaks can be really helpful. Learning can be really hard and it can take up a lot of the day. These brain breaks can help just kind of break out that monotony. They'll do things like obstacle courses. They've done things like dance videos, just trying to get movement going more on the physical than the mental, but also having another activity that they have to follow instructions on.
Okay, so kind of what we offer compared to less restrictive settings, and what those main differences are that we've kind of highlighted. those lower ratios are a key piece to our center. With classrooms being a maximum of 10 clients, our ratios being at a maximum of 1 staff to 3 kids, we're really able to ensure that we're working on individualized barriers, implementing specialized behavior plans, and working on those individualized learning needs that our clients have, as well as working to ensure safety for clients to ultimately have them transition out of our center.
Okay. We collaborate. So we talked a little bit about this in the beginning, but we currently partner with the University of Utah in several ways. That's usually our biggest provider because they're so close to us. We have a couple of them assisting in research studies. So we just had one on something called the Good Behavior Game, where they can come in and help us find ways to have the whole classroom work together for a singular goal. They get prizes at the end. So that was really fun. And it's been something that we've been able to implement in some of the classrooms. We've partnered up with occupational therapy students, and they've created center-wide plans for us to be able to help with classrooms, and just since we don't have an OT, finding ways that we can use some of those resources. And we've even hosted interns to provide RBT and social work services. So they'll come in here for a semester or two and just build skills here, of course, and work with our clientele, but also help us out.
So ways that we are not currently able to assist with clients. So we do not have any certified teachers. So we're really not able to work on those higher levels of learning needs outside of those kind of more pre-academic pieces. So that is something that we see with clients if their barriers have reduced and they're in need of higher learning kind of opportunities. That's kind of a cue for us that they are ready to transition. But that is something we are currently working on, is getting a certified teacher here to be able to oversee some of our programming. So that's something that is in the work. And then clients with the need to build social and group skills. This may not be an appropriate setting for them because we are having kids, as I said, come in that are displaying challenging behaviors. And so once kids get to a level that those barriers are significantly decreased, then we don't necessarily have the peer models for them anymore. We have new kids coming in, so we kind of have a cycle of kids that come in and out of our center, and that takes away peer models for other kids. So that shows us also that it's time for them to transition and be in those larger group settings to be able to have more appropriate peers for them. So those are kind of indicators for us, and also ways that we don't have as much of an ability to support them in our center at those points.
How we support our parents. We're able to have parents volunteer to observe with how their child is progressing and learn interventions that the classroom is using. These happen sometimes once a week, sometimes once a month. I think as the clients get older, the parents know a lot more, so they're coming a little bit less. We might have them come once a year, but it's not something that has to happen. It's something that the parents can choose to do. We understand that they're very busy, so this is always something that they can take. BCBAs like me and Savannah are also able to provide parent trainings for the parents who receive ABA services. So we get 2 hours every 6 months, and we can kind of divvy that up however we'd like. Just trying to find ways that we can use our interventions with them, get feedback on how that's going at home, something like what you would see with our other classrooms, but specified with that BCBA, with that extra knowledge. And additionally, we provide monthly parent training presentations. So we'll have either somebody from the community come present or someone here from the center, and they'll pick a topic and hopefully show the parents something that might help with their day-to-day. Our last one was about using skills in different settings. So behavioral management skills, like being able to use reinforcement, toleration, things like that while you're out and about.
Our training process. So as the clinical supervisor, I oversee like our new hire process and training processes. So I do a lot of this day to day, but we have a lot of different professionals working here. So we really ensure we have individualized ways to also train our staff. And then for our aid positions, those are kind of like our entry level positions. And those are for staff that really don't have and don't need to have any previous experience in the area. They just have an interest for learning, or maybe they're like in a psychology class or something like that that has drawn them to work with this population. So that entails a lot of teaching on aspects of applied behavior analysis, on the classroom, behavior management, those pieces. So when we onboard new staff, they start with an onboarding for Valley Behavioral Health. And then once they come to our unit, we do a specific training on kind of aspects of our classes, on our documentation systems, on really kind of the paperwork side of things. And then they immediately start observing in classrooms. So that's where the majority of training is, because that's the biggest part of their jobs. And so they're in the classroom. We have training checklists to ensure they're being trained on things that they need to be trained on. We provide de-escalation training. That's an annual certification we use. It's called Safety Care or QBS training. That specifically addresses how to kind of notice if a behavior is about to occur. Once a behavior is occurring, how to appropriately de-escalate it, as well as if you are grabbed, bitten, your hair's pulled, any kind of aspect like that, how to appropriately release to ensure the most safety to yourself and also to our clients. So Rafael and I are the trainers for that. That's based in applied behavior analysis as well, and it's a really great training that we do within every staff's first month here, and then renewed annually, as I mentioned. Then we do monthly meetings with all of our different positions to provide opportunities for them to talk amongst their peers, and we bring discussion questions as well as addressing training needs that they have questions on or that we've seen frequent areas that need more training on. We do quarterly case meetings to discuss with each classroom, along with our leadership staff, any barriers each client is having within the classroom, and we do those every 6 months for each classroom. Then Rafael goes in and does quarterly classroom observations, and he completes observation form for them and goes over that feedback with them. And then there's just constant supervision and feedback. So I supervise directly our team leads, who are our 3 managers that supervise different positions within our center, and they're meeting one-to-one with their direct supervisees, and then it goes down the chain with one-to-one supervision every month and having a formal meeting for that, but then just constant feedback on performance within the classrooms and if there are needs on that area.
Future plans for the Pingree Center. One big focus has been trying to find ways to focus on that early intervention. So that would look like ABA therapy for clients that are closer to the 4 age range. Our focus would be to do half day, just because it can be a little overwhelming to do that constant programming and learning for more than 3 hours. So it'd be 3-hour segments for those age groups. Transition age community integration programming. So that would be 18 to 22 and getting them ready either for our adult ability center or another setting or a day treatment center. And that's in the works right now. We have a couple outings that we have planned, but just trying to build those building blocks for that program. Parent support groups are a big need that we have in our center. So just trying to find ways to house that and build that up for the parents in our center. And then hopefully some recreational therapy groups. Savannah luckily has that background. So we're going to try to find ways to include that with our autism clients. And yeah, this is our contact information. Feel free to reach out to us for any autism or Pingree related questions. We'll share this presentation with you all, of course. And then I'd love to give some time for some questions.
Thank you, Rafael, Savannah. And we're so grateful that you were able to come today and give us kind of that really nice comprehensive overview of Pingree. We do have a couple minutes for questions before we launch into that. I just want to share 2 announcements with the group, because I know some people have to sign off right at 10. Our next meeting will be October 16th. And our topic for that meeting will be supporting transgender youth. And so I'm also going to launch the poll for today's meeting evaluation while we go ahead and take some questions. I had somebody comment in the chat. Thank you, Rafael and Savannah. So no questions yet. You can either go ahead and unmute yourself or add questions directly to the chat. I had one question about the, you mentioned the adult ability center that just opened in 2020. Is that considered part of Pingree services, or is that separate?
So it's under the umbrella of Valley Behavioral Health. We're siblings in the community, but they are not under us, so they're just adjacent to us.
Okay. And is that one also primarily open to Optum Medicaid clients, or is it for private insurance and private pay as well?
Similar to us, they can offer services to anyone, really just depending on how they would like to get their services provided. DSPD funding is the main source that they're using right now, but they have started kind of venturing into ABA services. So really, they can be pretty open to funding sources.
Great. And I have another question since nobody's asking them. You had mentioned that, you know, it seems like the goal for Pingree is to transition back to least restrictive environment. Do you have any idea, like percentage wise, how many people like complete their full education versus those that transition back?
So as far as going on to like get a diploma, I wouldn't know that information, but kids that are transitioning out of here, we try to divvy it up by that age group, like Savannah had said, our preschool, early elementary, late elementary, and middle school, high school. Our preschool right now, about 60% of the clients that transition out once they age out of that 6-year-old range end up going to a public school or private school in either a SPED or general ed classroom. The other 40% either stay with us or go to a restrictive setting like a one-on-one ABA provider, something like that. So for our younger kids, about 60%. For our older kids, we might get about out of our 40 clients that we have in that age group, about 2 or 3 end up going to that public school setting. So about 5% a year end up getting to transition out, meeting those skills that we would have for them and being able to move on. So definitely the older they get here, the more barriers we're seeing and the less likely it is that they'd be able to move on to that next step.
Great. Any other final questions for Rafael or Savannah? I have the one that just came up in the chat. It said, what ages are accepted at Pingree? Could you offer help to a child with autism who's 7 years old and still not potty trained and struggles with picky eating?
So we do ages 2 all the way to 21. Definitely the younger age groups are the ones that we transition out more. So that's where most of the openings are at. We just kind of went through our wait list with adding more clients. So we used to have a wait list of about 200 clients. We've dwindled it down to about 50. So that 2 to 6-year-old range is a big space for us right now to add. As they get older, right now that 6 to 12-year-old range, we still have some spots for, but older than 12 can be really hard to find. We currently only have 1 spot, and we have a couple people already on the wait list for it. So really, it just depends on age groups and when kids are transitioning out. But we can have clients from 2 to 21 enter our center. For the bathrooming, we can help with all potty training. So we have clients that are all the way at that 18-year-old range that we're still helping with toileting, either changing diapers, helping them clean up after. So toilet training is definitely a big part of our center, and we'd be able to help with all of those processes.
Great. All right. Well, I don't see any other questions coming in, and I know a lot of people have to jump to other meetings here at 10 or other work. So we appreciate you all. And we'll make sure to send out all the slides that were shared today and the resources that were mentioned as well. So look for an email with all those links. And we will plan to see you all next month. Thanks, everyone.
Oh.